As usual, today we are going to discuss about Islamophobia, but this time outside of Europe, in India and precisely in West Bengal. In many Indian states like West Bengal, Kerala, and Kashmir, nowadays we are seeing an escalated level of violence and chasm between Muslims and other communities, which I am pretty sure is a direct consequence of Islamophobia. But before I get into the details, I would like to mention two recent incidents happening in neighboring Bangladesh where Muslims are a majority. A 5-year-old Hindu minority girl was raped by a man nearly 10 times older. Ironically, the little girl used to call him Papa, a friendly term used for elderly person since he was much like her own father. During this rape, the guy named Saiful ripped apart her genitalia while burning it with a lit cigarette. Before bleeding to death, miraculously, the girl survived as she was rescued 18 hours later. The second incident was related to a Facebook post in secular Bangladesh. And as a result of offending the peaceful Muslims living in that country, 15 Hindu temples were vandalized, 200 Hindu homes were destroyed, and 8 shops were set on fire. And at least 150 men are injured. So, this is how the minority rights are reserved in Muslim majority Bangladesh. However, today we will be discussing on Hindu majority India. And this clip was from West Bengal last year, where hundreds of Hindu homes were looted and burned down. Hindu women were raped and physically assaulted by the followers of the religion of peace, where, let us remind ourselves, they are a minority. So the question is, what are you going to do with these people? In the recent past, there have been many occurrences of communal riots in some parts of India where there is a significant majority of population is Muslim. And this escalated violence yet again proves that Islam and Muslims, like in the West, are in general unassimilated into all other cultures. Hardline Islamic preaching, which is going on in the mosques and religious schools all across, have been playing a vital role in this alienation within our society. An article published a couple of days ago described how an Islamic cleric made a village, literally a mini Islamic state, here in West Bengal within just a couple of years. In the past, you might be wondering why there are so many radicals in the Muslim community. Well, that's exactly what we will be exploring today. And as usual, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share this message, and also consider subscribing if you'd like to see similar materials in the future as well. The Islamic cleric named Nasar has difficulties to speak fluently the most common language spoken by most of the inhabitants in West Bengal, which is Bengali. But he is very eloquent when it comes to speaking Arabic. With his Islamic traditional attire, not only he became a respected Islamic cleric, he also adjudicates over matters of religion, marriage, divorce, and other personal issues. To prove that he is a pure Muslim, he denied to be pictured, nor does he have photos of any of his daughters either, because taking photos is haram, prohibited in Islam, even if it's a picture of a painting or a landscape, and that's why the only photo he has is the photo of the Kaaba stone. He also taught a very good lesson to one of his daughters by smashing her teeth for singing a song. Television is the devil's tool to corrupt, and cinema is a greater evil. Music, even whistling or humming a song, is a sign that Satan has entered into a person's body. He justifies his action. In accordance with Quranic teachings, he married 4 wives, one of whom died for reasons we don't know. A decade ago, the local community was full of sinners, according to him, because women didn't wear burqa and sat next to men and chat. Perhaps you might know that prior to Islam, the city of Mecca belonged to pagan idolaters, and there are 360 idols inside the Kaaba, where they used to circle around 7 times once a year. After Muhammad and his army invaded the city, Muhammad destroyed those idols, and nowadays during pilgrimage to Mecca, Muslims kiss the black stone and circle around it exactly 7 times. In other words, they follow the same old pagan tradition themselves. However, visiting a tomb or a shrine is considered shirk or polytheism in Islam, which is punishable by death. So if you go to pilgrimage to Mecca and circle around a pagan temple, then it's okay, but if you visit a church, then you are committing shirk. Welcome to Islamic double standards. Mr. Nasser explains that in Islam, women of the household are not only barred from appearing in front of the male strangers, even their voices shouldn't be heard by males who do not belong to the family. When it comes to eating food, he also sets an extraordinary example by telling us how Muhammad used to eat. He lifts his fried grams with three fingers, thumb, index, and middle, and putting them in his mouth. This is how the Prophet ate, and this is how everybody should eat. He also added that for good measures, you should lick your three fingers after eating. To follow the example set by Muhammad, he drinks water with three pauses. After being indoctrinated extensively in Islamic religious texts, a senior Islamic cleric suggested that his name must be changed because a true Muslim cannot have the name of a Hindu or a kafir. So his original name, given by his uneducated and unaware parents, had to be replaced with a more halal name like Nasar. After changing his name, he came under the influence of the most halal, senior Islamic scholar, who then brainwashed him in the most dogmatic Salafi theology, supported by the proponents of the Wahhabi Islam funded by Saudi oil money. And since he arrived in the town of Kebala, so came along his batshit crazy, beard growing, and burqa wearing Wahhabi dogma. And since his arrival, the native Hindu population started to move out because the Muslims who were friendly and liberal, in other words, uneducated and unaware, once upon a time became more and more segregated and alienated and sectarian, in other words, aware and educated in Islamic dogma. They stopped talking to the native Hindus and started calling them kafir. And as a result, there is now only 2 dozen Hindu families who are living rather a very uncomfortable life next to these invading Muslims. The mosque, which was once colorless, is renovated with shining colors, while the color of the life of the ordinary people has been replaced with black and white. An inconvenient fact, however, is that in Saudi Arabia, not only it is unconstitutional to preach any other religion in public other than Islam, it is also unconstitutional and highly punishable to enter into the city of Mecca, which was once used to be the holy city of pagan idolaters, housing 360 idols inside Kaaba prior to Islam. And nowadays, if anybody is stupid enough to preach anything except Islam in public in Saudi Arabia, there's a high possibility that he would be lynched on spot. And if he does something very offensive like entering into the city, then the minimum penalty is permanent ban from the country and deportation. So if you are a Hindu, please don't bother preaching Hinduism in Saudi Arabia, and please never dare to enter into Mecca. However, here in India, where Muslims ruled nearly 1,000 years, slaughtering nearly 400 million Hindus and Buddhists, and dividing Indian subcontinent into three Muslim countries, namely Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and destroying its once glorious culture along the way, now again allowed to poison the whole society more and more as Islam has been allowed to expand under the novel cause of religious freedom. And by building more and more mosques, Islam is expanding throughout India by educating the Muslims about how to hate Hindus and all other non-Muslims. Men are dressed in white, while women always wear black burqa. No shop sells lipstick or nail polish. Most houses don't have pictures, portraits, or paintings on their walls. Only a few have television sets, and the ones that do only watch Islamic religious channels, including QTV of Pakistan. Even the youngsters don't listen to songs on their mobile headsets, at least not openly. And instead of sending children to regular schools, most Muslim families send their children to Nasar's Madrasa, a religious school. Instead of dreaming that their children will grow up to become doctors, engineers, and bureaucrats as they used to do earlier, they now want their sons to join Salafi seminar and their daughters to become dutiful housewife. Sounds fascinating, doesn't it? One of his enlightened followers testifies his transformation by saying that he wants both of his sons, aged 22 and 24, to be indoctrinated in Wahhabism by sending them to Medina, which was a Jewish city prior to Islam. So, after Jews have been driven out by Muhammad and his army of bandits and thugs, now, centuries later, this Jewish city is one of the main cities where Wahhabism is being preached. And his wife Ruxana, who used to wear saris, a traditional garment that women of all culture wear in India, and had many framed photographs of her family on vacations in seaside destination and the hills of Bengal, now, after becoming educated in Islam, stays indoors and envelopes herself in black burqa as she steps out of her house on rare occasions nowadays and cannot even dream of going on vacation at all. And his 19-year-old daughter, who once wanted to become a school teacher, was married off last year to another Islamic cleric, almost double her age. Surely we can see how Islam, the true Islam, transforms life of people with vibrant colors and fill their minds with dreams. We were leading the life of mushrikeen, heretics, earlier, and never realized that all that we are doing was sinful according to Islam. In other words, singing songs, sitting next to each other in a local cafe, and having a chat with non-Muslims, not growing beard like a buffoon, and not wearing a mobile tent called burqa is all sinful. We were Muslims in name only. It was only after Mr. Nasser came that we got to know what Islam is really all about. He has saved us, bless him. Otherwise, we would all have burned in hell. After having lived a majority portion of my life in sin, it is now my mission to preach Salafi Islam to my fellow Muslim brethren in Malda district and even outside. I have also made it my mission to bring in as many kafirs as I can within the fold of Islam and save them from going to hell. Ultimately, inshallah, India will join Bangladesh and Pakistan in becoming a Muslim country, and we will have an Islamic belt stretching from Middle East to Southeast Asia. That day is not far away. Kafirs can live in Islamic Caliphate, but as a second-class citizen with limited rights as deemed in the Hadiths. It will thus be better for them to become Muslims because that is the will of Allah, he added. An inconvenient fact, however, is that in Pakistan at least 1,000 women are killed each year by their own family members, while Bangladesh ranks highest in the virtuous act of throwing a seed at women's face. Sahih al-Bukhari 2338 states that Allah's Messenger intended to expel the Jews, but they requested him to let them stay there on the condition that they would do the labor and get half of the fruits. Allah's Messenger told them, "We will let you stay on this condition as long as you wish." And this enlightened follower of Nasser wants India to become like Pakistan and Bangladesh, turning a democracy into an Islamic state. Mr. Nasser supports beheading, amputation of limbs, and stoning to death of the sinners, adulterers, and kafirs. It is the sacred duty of all Muslims, he asserts, to strive for Ummah, identity of a single Muslim community around the world, spreading Islam by force if necessary, and establishment of an Islamic caliphate that will stretch out to all corners of the world. He also supports ISIS, calling the US a satanic power, and feels Muslims should not join the Indian army that is pitted against Islamic Pakistan. The neighboring Bangladeshis are heretics and apostates for having broken away from Pakistan, and that is why disasters visit the country quite often. They have incurred the wrath of Allah and will continue to burn forever, he says angrily. The golden age of Islam, when Muslims ruled over much of the civilized world, will return for sure. India is the only country which stands between Islamic countries, and it is only a matter of time before India also becomes an Islamic nation, he says, adding a satisfied smile that Eastern India is already on its way to becoming a region with large Muslim presence. Thanks to the growth in the Muslim population over the last few decades, India's salvation lies in becoming an Islamic nation. Once that happens, enmity with Pakistan will cease, and imagine the tremendous benefits that will accrue. India will not have to spend billions of dollars on military, and in fact won't even need an army because it will have friends all around. Allah will protect the Islamic nation of India then, he says in all seriousness. In the beginning of 7th century, prior to the birth of Islam, Egypt and much of Middle East and North Africa was entirely Christian, which was later swallowed up by Islam through jihad, murder and ruthless killing. During 1000 years of Islamic ruling, 400 million Hindus and Buddhists were slaughtered in Indian subcontinent, which once stretched over India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and as far as Jabal in Iran. The very first Muslim invasion on India had taken place in Sindh in the year 711. These Muslim invaders were Arabs led by Muhammad bin Qasim, who, in their first jihad mission, conducted slaughtering of the unbelievers for 3 days in a row, killing every man, woman and children because there was no order of sparing a single life. And during this ruthless invasion, thousands of Hindu temples were destroyed and replaced by minarets as a symbol of humiliation and supremacy by Islam over the natives. According to 2011 census, the Muslim population was 27%, which has increased significantly in the recent years, along with significant increase in number of violence. What is more shocking is that this kind of mini Islamic states are growing at a colossal scale in every district, in every state, in every country, be it India or United States. And as a consequence, more and more violence is inevitable as more and more Sharia-compliant jihadists will come out of these mini Islamic states all across. And thanks for watching. And finally, I will leave it for you to judge.
Let me ask this. I've asked this question before. If a European country sometime in the future became 51% Muslim, would it be the same country? Would it have the same values, the same laws? Would laws change?
Would you ask that question about Jews?
I will.
Would you ask that question about Catholics?
I will ask that question. And the answer is it wouldn't change because they're already the fucking majority. But Muslims are not. If you're telling me that if a European country became 51% Muslim, it would basically be the same country you grew up in?
The problem would not be Islam. It would be homogeneity. That you'd be homogenous.
But
you're talking about things where everybody is one faith group. Britain
but I'm
is
talking
diverse.
about our fundamental principles like equality of women, separation of religion and state, respect for minorities, rule of law, as opposed to religious rule.
Do you know about the Westboro Baptist Church? There are a whole bunch of fundamental...
Again, this false equivalency.
It's not a false
Matt,
equivalency.
please.
I'm going to hurt your reputation by helping you.
Baptist Church.
I'm from Kansas. I know what that is.
Oh my
look,
God.
we have to call things as they are. And look, there are a lot of moderate Muslims who know that Islam is in a fight for the idea that you can have. Let me finish. That you can have a civilization where you have religious pluralism. They themselves, those Muslims, don't believe in that religious pluralism.
So, Matt, will you tell me this?
Those extremists.
Can you explain to me the structure of the government of Indonesia?
I can't.
Okay. Do you know that Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world?
I've read that.
We do.
Yeah. So, But then, so if you're telling me you don't know anything about the way that the largest Muslim country in the world operates...
Oh, I do. I could give you statistics about Indonesia. I could tell you that in Indonesia, if you want to be a woman policeman or a woman military person, you have to undergo the two-finger test, where they tell if you're a virgin.
Right, but that's Indonesia's problem. It's not Britain's problem.
That answers
because we don't have a religious state.
That we're not completely crazy, that assimilation is an issue.
There are different types of Islam.
Extend that argument. Wait, can I extend that argument?
I'm sick. I got to go take care of my cold. Thank you very much, everybody.